Hey guys, tonight we are going all the way back, farther than any history book on your shelf, beyond pyramids, beyond dinosaurs, beyond even the first living cell. Tonight, we're drifting to a time when Earth itself wasn't even Earth yet. Just a swirl of dust and fire spinning in a newborn universe. Imagine lying beneath the night sky, only instead of stars twinkling gently, the air is so thick with cosmic debris that light itself feels raw and unfinished. You wouldn't survive 5 seconds here. There's no oxygen, no ground beneath your feet, only a violent ballet of rocks smashing, melting, fusing, and tearing apart. And yet, somehow, out of all this chaos, your home is about to be born. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're listening right now, drop a comment below with your location and the time of day. Because as we drift through billions of years tonight, it's fun to know exactly where on this little blue planet you're listening from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You drift backward into a time before Earth. The universe is still young, only a few billion years old. The stars are brighter, heavier, more volatile than most of the ones you see now. Some live fast and die violently, scattering heavy elements into the cosmos with every supernova. Iron, nickel, carbon, gold. Ingredients that will one day form mountains, oceans, your blood, your bones. Those ancient stellar deaths leave behind clouds of dust, floating endlessly through space like the smoke of forgotten fires. And somewhere, in a quiet corner of the Milky Way, one such cloud begins to swirl. The gravity of the cloud tightens, pulling dust grains together. They stick through tiny charges, bumping like static clinging on a winter sweater. At first, they're just motes, barely noticeable, but over millions of years, they clump into larger bodies. Pebbles, boulders, asteroids. The collisions are brutal, explosive, yet every time something survives, it grows a little bigger. You float above this chaos, watching stone grow into worlds. This is accretion, the slow, relentless process by which chaos creates planets. In the center of it all, the sun blazes into being. A star newborn, igniting hydrogen into helium, burning with such ferocity that it pushes lighter gases away from the inner solar system. That's why Earth, Mercury, Venus, and Mars end up rocky, stripped of most of their hydrogen and helium. The outer giants, Jupiter, Saturn, hold on to theirs. Already the shape of the solar system begins to make sense. You hover over a glowing sphere that's barely recognizable as Earth. At this point, it's not green, not blue, not even solid. It's molten, a ball of magma with no sky, only a choking haze of gas escaping from cracks. The ground quivers constantly with impacts. Asteroids the size of mountains rain down, sometimes entire mini-planets slamming into the surface. The largest of these crashes will change Earth forever. One such body, scientists call it Theia, slams into the young Earth about 4.5 billion years ago. The impact is catastrophic, so violent that molten rock splashes into space, forming a glowing ring around Earth. From that debris, slowly, the moon is born. You can almost see it coalesce, a pale orb pulling itself into a sphere, circling its bruised parent. The Earth tilts, its spin changes, and tides are born. Even now, billions of years later, the echo of that collision guides the rhythms of oceans, the pull of tides, the soft rising and falling of water on every beach. Verified fact. The moon really does stabilize Earth's tilt, keeping seasons regular enough for life to flourish. Without it, your winters and summers might wobble unpredictably, swinging from icy chills to burning heat. And here's a quirky little detail. Some fragments of that early Earth-Moon collision might still be buried deep beneath your feet, trapped in the mantle as alien lumps of ancient rock. Scientists call them large, low-shear velocity provinces. It's as if parts of Theia never left, hiding beneath us like long-forgotten guests. But even with the moon's calming presence, Earth is anything but calm. Volcanoes roar endlessly, spewing carbon dioxide, nitrogen, and steam into the air. There's no oxygen yet, nothing to breathe. If you were standing here, assuming you could stand, you'd see red skies thick with haze, black oceans boiling, lightning flashing in sulfurous clouds. You can almost smell the sharp tang of metal, the choking burn of volcanic gases. Yet this poisonous cocktail is laying the foundation of an atmosphere. And still, uncertainties linger. Geologists still debate how quickly Earth cooled. Did oceans form within a few million years, or did it take hundreds of millions? Some evidence hints that liquid water existed astonishingly early, perhaps as soon as 4.3 billion years ago. Imagine that. A planet still scarred and molten, yet already cradling seas under a faint young sun. Others argue the surface was too hostile, too fiery for such early oceans. The truth is hidden in crystals of zircon, tiny survivors from those ancient days, carrying whispers but not answers. You step closer to the young Earth, watching as rain falls for the first time. Not the gentle drops you know, but torrents, steam condensing into downpours that last centuries. Oceans rise, swallowing craters and lava plains, until the world wears a shimmering coat of blue. Beneath those waters, minerals dissolve, currents swirl, and chemistry begins to stir, but not yet life. For now, Earth is still alone, its only companion the pale moon circling faithfully. Yet even in its fiery youth, you feel the heartbeat of something waiting. The continents do not yet exist as you know them. Instead, the crust buckles, drifts, and reforms constantly. Slabs of rock sink and rise like pancakes flipping on a griddle. Deep beneath, the mantle churns, carrying heat upward. Plate tectonics, this restless conveyor belt of stone, is already at work. It will shape mountains, rip open oceans, and someday push continents into collisions that spark entire eras of life and death. Above, meteors continue to fall, though less often now. Some carry water, perhaps even organic molecules. Complex carbon chains forged in the dark between stars. Imagine tiny seeds falling from space, mingling with Earth's boiling seas. Some scientists believe life's building blocks came this way, in a cosmic delivery service from beyond. Others argue the ingredients were here all along, waiting in volcanic pools or undersea vents. Which story is true? Perhaps both. Perhaps neither. That mystery lingers. You drift over the surface as lightning flashes across black skies. In shallow pools, molecules begin to dance, colliding, breaking, and reforming. The recipe is still incomplete, but you sense the possibility simmering. Out of chaos, patterns begin to whisper. Billions of years later, you will tell stories of empires and kings, of wars and peace, of pyramids and machines. But all of that depends on this: a young, molten, battered world, cooling just enough to carry oceans, just enough to hold an atmosphere, just enough to keep going instead of tearing apart. Tonight, you've stood in the middle of fire, rock, and endless storm. And in this storm, Earth found its form. You drift from the molten world into a calmer, though still alien, Earth. The oceans spread wider now, cooling into basins that shimmer under a dim, faint sun. You hover above this world, listening to the hiss of steam as hot rock meets water, watching black volcanic ridges snake across the seabed. This is not yet the Earth you know. The skies are still tinted orange-brown, heavy with carbon dioxide and methane. The air is unbreathable, dense with poisons and haze. But if you lean close to the water's edge, you can almost hear the first quiet stirrings of chemistry, a whisper at the boundary between rock and sea. Picture yourself standing on one of the few rocky islands breaking the surface. The crust is thin, fragile, and restless. Lava oozes into the water, hardens, and cracks again. The ocean swirls, thick with dissolved minerals, iron, silica, sulfur. It looks almost like soup, strange, metallic, and glittering with particles. This, some scientists argue, was the true laboratory of life. But before life can arrive, Earth must first build the tools for it. You watch the sun climb over the horizon, dimmer than today, faint enough that the young Earth should, by all accounts, be frozen. This puzzle is known as the faint young sun paradox. The sun, billions of years ago, gave off about 30% less heat than it does now. And yet, Earth wasn't locked in ice. Something in the atmosphere, perhaps greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide and methane, must have kept the planet warm enough for liquid water. You feel the contradiction hanging in the air, like a riddle whispered by the universe. Still, the seas hold steady. They slosh over volcanic shelves and plunge into deep trenches. Hydrothermal vents, like black chimneys, spew superheated water rich with minerals. Around them, strange chemical reactions churn endlessly. Here, in the dark, shielded from the violent storms above, life may be preparing its first spark. And then, somewhere, somehow, it happens. You hover above a shallow pool as molecules tangle, fold, and replicate. It is not yet life, not as you'd recognize it. But something remarkable occurs, a pattern that makes a copy of itself. Perhaps it is RNA, fragile strands of information stringing together from simple ingredients. Or perhaps it is something older, some other molecule now lost to history. Scientists still debate which path was taken, whether life began in sunlit pools, volcanic vents, or icy comets that fell from space. You lean closer, but the moment remains shrouded in uncertainty, hidden in chemistry that leaves behind no fossil. Verified fact: the earliest evidence of life on Earth dates back over 3.5 billion years in the form of stromatolites, layered mounds built by microbial mats. These ancient structures still exist in a few corners of the world today, such as Shark Bay in Australia. They are, in a sense, living fossils, echoes of a time when life was just beginning to experiment with complexity. You glide through time, skimming the waves of those early oceans. Cells now drift in the water, simple, single-celled organisms, but resilient beyond measure. They feed on chemicals, on sunlight, and whatever energy they can find. They multiply, divide, and spread across the planet. If you dip your hand into these ancient seas, it would come up filled not with fish or algae, but with invisible microbes. And yet, this invisible world is the foundation of everything to come. Here's a quirky thought. Some researchers speculate that the earliest cells may have been powered not by sunlight, but by lightning and minerals. Imagine flashes of lightning striking shallow pools, sparking reactions that created amino acids, the building blocks of proteins. Or picture bubbles forming on the ocean floor, trapping chemicals inside like little test tubes. Within these bubbles, reactions could run longer, more efficiently, until something resembling life finally took shape. As you drift, you notice the planet itself is restless. Continents are just beginning to form, rising as lighter rocks float on heavier mantle. They are small at first, scattered like crumbs on a vast ocean floor. But they slowly grow, colliding and merging, breaking apart again in cycles that will continue forever. These shifting plates create coastlines, islands, and shallow seas. The perfect laboratories for life to spread and diversify. The air above is still alien. The skies glow faintly red, heavy with methane. If you looked up at the stars, they'd be veiled by haze. And yet, high-energy radiation from the sun pours through, unfiltered by an ozone layer. Life clings mostly to the oceans, safe beneath the water. It is here, in the quiet rhythm of waves, that Earth begins to breathe. Cyanobacteria, tiny blue-green cells, emerge. They are small, humble, but they wield a power that will change the planet forever. Photosynthesis. Using sunlight, they split water molecules, release oxygen, and store energy. Slowly, almost invisibly, they begin to exhale into the atmosphere. At first, the oxygen is swallowed by iron in the oceans, staining the seas a rusty red as iron oxides settle into layers of rock. These banded iron formations, still visible in cliffs today, are the fingerprints of life's greatest experiment. But oxygen is tricky. For early life, it is poison. Many microbes cannot tolerate it. As oxygen builds, entire lineages suffocate, vanish, or retreat into hidden niches. It is one of the greatest mass extinctions in history, though few remember it. The survivors adapt, evolve, and discover new ways to use this volatile gas. And with oxygen, possibilities bloom. Energy flows more efficiently. Complexity grows more likely. Still, mysteries linger. Scientists argue over when exactly photosynthesis began and how quickly oxygen filled the air. Was the rise sudden? A great oxidation event that transformed the planet in a geological blink? Or was it slower, a hesitant breath stretched over hundreds of millions of years? You tilt your head, listening. But the rocks don't answer. They whisper only fragments, leaving the story unfinished. You drift again, and the world begins to cool. Clouds of water vapor settle into more stable patterns. The first rain-fed rivers carve channels into rock. Thunder rumbles less often, storms quiet as the skies clear. Earth's face becomes calmer, though still alien. You wander through this young world and realize it is no longer just stone and fire. It is now alive. The seas teem with cells invisible to your eye, but endless in their variety. Every gulp of water holds billions. They are not fish, not plants, not anything you'd recognize, but they are ancestors of everything you know. Imagine dipping a shell into these waters, then carrying it forward through billions of years. Inside, those microbes would diversify into forests, corals, animals, humans. They would invent wings, roots, bones, language. They would build pyramids, satellites, and stories whispered to help people sleep. All of it, from the swirl of galaxies to the touch of your hand, depends on these first quiet stirrings. Tonight, you stand on a rocky shore 3.5 billion years ago. The air heavy, the sky strange, the seas alive in ways too small to see. You hear the bubbling vents, the crash of waves, the faint hiss of gases. And in those sounds, you hear history beginning, not of kings or cities, but of life itself. You drift forward in time, carried on the slow, invisible tide of billions of years. The oceans spread wider, continents shuffle and collide, and above it all, the atmosphere thickens with new breath. You are standing at the edge of a world in transition. For so long, Earth has been a planet ruled by microbes, tiny, invisible rulers who blanket the seas. But now, something dramatic begins to unfold, something that will transform the very chemistry of air and sea. This is the story of oxygen, and with it, the first great breath of the planet. The faint young sun still casts its weaker light across the seas, but the cyanobacteria hum steadily, tirelessly. They float in colonies, tiny green threads suspended in the water, soaking up sunlight and releasing oxygen as waste. To you, oxygen feels like life. But to the ancient world, it is a poison. Imagine being surrounded by a gas that corrodes your very cells, a substance that ignites fire, rusts metal, and disrupts delicate chemical balances. For countless early microbes, oxygen is death. You can almost hear their quiet panic, as if the very medium they swim through is turning against them. This is what scientists call the Great Oxidation Event, one of the most significant turning points in Earth's history. The dates are fuzzy, around 2.4 billion years ago, give or take. But the impact is undeniable. You walk along ancient seashores and see the evidence written in stone. Banded iron formations, layers of red and gray, mark the ocean's slow suffocation as oxygen reacted with dissolved iron, sinking to the seafloor as rust. At first, oxygen had no place to linger in the air. It was quickly swallowed by these hungry seas. But as time passed, the iron was exhausted, the rust settled, and the oxygen had nowhere else to go. Slowly, the sky itself began to change. It's a peculiar thought. If you looked up then, the sky may not have been blue. Some suggest it could have appeared greenish or even orange-brown, depending on methane levels and haze. Only when oxygen rose high enough to form an ozone layer did the familiar blue sky reveal itself. Historians of the Earth argue about when exactly this happened. Did the ozone shield emerge suddenly, or was it gradual, patchy, like a thin veil pulled slowly across the heavens? You tilt your head and try to see, but the air shimmers with uncertainty, as if history itself doesn't want to be pinned down. Oxygen does more than poison microbes. It alters everything. With its arrival, methane is stripped from the atmosphere. Methane, a powerful greenhouse gas, once kept the Earth warm under the faint young sun. Without it, the world begins to cool, tipping toward ice. You walk along coastlines as the seas harden into slush, ice sheets creeping closer to the equator. This is Snowball Earth, a time when our planet may have frozen almost completely. The debate still rages. Was Earth truly a snowball, sealed in ice from pole to pole, or more of a slush ball with patches of open water? You stand at the shoreline and see ice stretching endlessly. But here and there, cracks of liquid water shimmer like fragile veins. In those cracks, life clings, stubborn and ingenious. And here's a quirky detail. Imagine the entire Earth shining like a pearl from space, white and glistening. Some scientists wonder if this brightness could have affected the planet's orbit or its balance of energy. Did Earth's own reflection slow its recovery from the freeze? Or did volcanic activity, eruptions that poured carbon dioxide back into the atmosphere, finally melt the grip of ice? You hover above volcanic plumes, feeling the warmth of gases spilling into the frozen air, and slowly, over millions of years, the snowball cracks open. Rivers flow again, oceans thaw, and the stage is set for something new. You glide now into oceans alive with microbial mats. Picture stromatolites, those layered, rock-like mounds built by colonies of microbes. They rise from shallow seas, forming living reefs long before corals ever existed. If you touch one, it feels rough, like stone, but inside it pulses with life. Stromatolites still exist today in places like Shark Bay, though they are rare. Survivors of an age when they once covered entire coastlines. You step carefully, as if not to disturb their quiet, collective breathing. But oxygen's arrival does more than reshape seas and skies. It lays the groundwork for complexity. With oxygen, cells can generate energy far more efficiently. And so, evolution begins to experiment. You watch as some microbes engulf others, a strange partnership forming. One cell swallows another, but instead of digesting it, the swallowed one survives, begins to help. It generates energy, shares resources. This is endosymbiosis, the origin of mitochondria, the tiny powerhouses inside your own cells today. Every step you take, every breath you draw, depends on this ancient alliance. Here is your quirky fact. Mitochondria have their own DNA, separate from the rest of your body's genome. It is a reminder that once, long ago, they were free-living organisms. Even now, their independence lingers in the very core of your being, as if you are never truly alone. From these unions, the first eukaryotes emerge. Cells with nuclei, with compartments, with complexity. They are still microscopic, but they are the ancestors of plants, animals, fungi. In the oceans, you see them floating, experimenting with new forms, with cooperation, with diversity. The invisible world hums with possibility. The Earth itself is changing too. Continents, once small, begin to merge into supercontinents. You walk across vast, barren lands where few signs of life exist. The soil is bare, the sky is still harsh. But the oceans, they hold multitudes. Life remains mostly in the water, safe from the ultraviolet radiation above, but soon, the stage will expand. Scientists argue about how quickly this complexity arose. Some suggest there were false starts, times when eukaryotes began to spread, only to vanish in another round of extinction. Others believe it was a slow, steady climb. You lean close to the water, listening. But the whispers are contradictory, each rock telling a slightly different story. The truth, perhaps, is a mixture of both. Long periods of stagnation, punctuated by bursts of creativity. You linger in this time for a while, imagining what the world smells like. The sharp tang of sulfur, the metallic scent of iron, the clean bite of oxygen newly in the air. The sounds are muted. The crash of waves, the hiss of vents, the crackle of ice shifting. But underneath, life buzzes, unseen, unstoppable. And then, as millions of years slip by, something stirs in the oceans. Life, once small and simple, begins to grow restless. Cells cluster into colonies, colonies into tissues, tissues into creatures with form and motion. The seas are no longer invisible. They are about to burst with visible life. You stand at the threshold of the Cambrian, the world quiet before the explosion, knowing that soon the oceans will be filled with shapes, colors, and movements no one has ever seen before. For now, though, you linger in the stillness. The Earth has breathed, frozen, thawed, and learned to carry complexity within itself. The air is shifting toward the familiar blue, the continents drift, and the oceans hum with invisible ancestors. You close your eyes, listening to the rhythm of waves, and sense the inevitability of what comes next. You linger at the edge of deep time, and the ocean stretches before you like a canvas waiting for color. For billions of years, life has been silent and microscopic, tucked away in the chemistry of cells too small for the naked eye. But now, something stirs. The seas swell with whispers of change. Creatures that had been limited to the unseen world suddenly make themselves visible, painting the water with shapes, forms, and movements no eye has ever witnessed before. This is the Cambrian Explosion, one of the most astonishing moments in the story of Earth. And you are drifting right in the middle of it. Hey guys, tonight we step into a time when the seas bloom with life so strange you could hardly believe it if you saw it today. Imagine wading into shallow waters and finding yourself surrounded not by fish, not even by plants, but by alien-looking beings with spines, armor, and eyes that shine like cut glass. It is breathtaking, And also, let's be honest, you wouldn't survive it. There's no breathable air for you here yet. And even if there were, some of these creatures would happily pinch, sting, or swallow you whole. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The Cambrian period begins about 541 million years ago, and suddenly, the fossil record goes from a whisper to a shout. For eons before this, creatures certainly lived, but most had soft bodies that vanished without a trace. Then, in the Cambrian, something shifted. Creatures began building shells, exoskeletons, and hard parts, leaving behind impressions in stone that survive even to this day. As you drift through shallow seas, you see trilobites crawling across the seafloor. They are armored like pill bugs, their bodies segmented, their eyes faceted like tiny jewels. They scuttle in herds, leaving delicate trails in the sand. Everywhere you look, life is experimenting. Some creatures float like ribbons, others burrow into the mud. One wriggles past you with spiny flaps, its mouth like a vacuum, scooping debris. Another creature, Hallucigenia, crawls along upside down, though for years paleontologists couldn't even agree which side was up. They argued for decades whether its spines were legs or weapons. And even now, the debate lingers over just how this bizarre little worm truly lived. You laugh softly to yourself, because even scientists admit that the Cambrian was a time of surreal, dreamlike creatures. Many of them unlike anything alive today. You pause to watch Anomalocaris, a predator larger than most others of its time. It glides through the water like a manta ray, its segmented body rippling as it swims. At the front of its head are two grasping appendages, barbed and strong, reaching out to snatch trilobites and crack their shells. Its mouth opens in a strange circle of plates, spinning as it grinds food. If you're imagining something out of a science fiction movie, you're not far off. Anomalocaris is often called the first apex predator in history. What caused this sudden explosion of forms? That's one of the enduring mysteries. Some believe the rise of oxygen, remember the cyanobacteria we saw earlier, finally reached levels high enough to sustain larger, more complex animals. Others suggest genetic innovations, like the appearance of Hox genes, which control body plans and allow creatures to experiment with symmetry, limbs, and complexity. Still others argue it was simply ecological competition. Once predators like Anomalocaris appeared, prey had to evolve shells, armor, and speed, triggering an arms race of adaptations. The truth might be a blend of all three, layered over millions of years. You stand in the shallow seas, listening to scientists argue through time, their voices overlapping, never quite settling. The ocean floor is a carnival of motion. Sponges filter water in clusters, jelly-like creatures drift, and worms squirm through burrows. Algae waves in the currents, feeding everything with photosynthesis. The seas are warm, the continents scattered, and reefs are forming for the first time, though not yet with corals. Instead, microbial mats and early calcifying organisms create the structures. These reefs, fragile though they are, provide shelter, spawning even more diversity. Here's a quirky fact. Trilobites, those little armored bugs of the sea, developed complex compound eyes with lenses made of calcite, the only lenses in the animal kingdom made of a mineral. Imagine having crystals in your eyes, each tiny piece focused perfectly. They could see in ways we can hardly imagine, detecting movement and shapes across wide angles. And yet, despite their success, trilobites would eventually vanish, victims of time and extinction. For now, though, they rule. You drift deeper into the Cambrian seas and find another puzzle. Some of the earliest vertebrates appear here. Creatures with notochords, the faint beginnings of backbones. They are small, worm-like, and unimpressive at first glance. But these are the ancestors of fish, of amphibians, of reptiles, of mammals, and eventually of you. You watch them wiggle silently, barely noticed by the predators above. It's hard to believe that out of such humble bodies would one day rise dinosaurs, elephants, and astronauts. The Cambrian is also a reminder of how incomplete our knowledge is. Many of the fossils we know come from a single site. The Burgess Shale in Canada, discovered in the early 20th century. There, the fine-grained rocks preserved even the soft tissues of creatures that would normally vanish. Without it, much of the Cambrian explosion might still be invisible to us. You picture a prospector in 1909, splitting open a slab of shale and staring in wonder at a creature that looked like nothing he had ever seen before. Even now, paleontologists return to those layers, finding new surprises. Who knows what still lies hidden in stone, waiting to be discovered? As you wander the Cambrian oceans, the diversity feels overwhelming. Over 70 major groups of animals appear in this era, many of which still exist today. You watch brachiopods open and close their shells, primitive mollusks sliding across the sand, and echinoderms, early cousins of starfish, sprawled across the seafloor. You wonder how it must have felt, this sudden blooming of life. Was it truly as rapid as it appears in the fossil record? Or did earlier fossils simply not preserve? Scientists debate, as always. The rocks hold answers, but they whisper them faintly, never shouting. And then, just as suddenly as it began, the Cambrian explosion gives way to stability. Evolution's burst slows, and ecosystems settle into balance. Predators and prey refine their strategies, reefs expand, and life spreads to every corner of the ocean. The Earth, once a quiet stage of microbes and rust, now hums with a symphony of complexity. The oceans are alive, colorful, full of alien shapes that nonetheless feel strangely familiar, as if they are echoes of what is yet to come. You stand in the shallow surf, staring out across the horizon of 500 million years ago. The tide laps at your feet, though these waters would still be deadly to you. The air above holds less oxygen than your lungs could tolerate. The waves carry creatures that would baffle your eyes. But in that strangeness lies the seed of everything: forests, animals, and even the story of humanity. The Cambrian explosion is less an event and more a promise, whispered into the deep. Life will not be small again. You close your eyes and listen to the sounds of the ancient sea. The faint hiss of waves, the bubbling of currents, the imagined clicking of trilobites, the ghostly swish of anomalocaris. It feels almost like a lullaby carried through the ages. And as you breathe out, the world prepares for its next transformation. Life, having conquered the oceans, begins to glance toward the land. You stand ankle deep at the edge of a tide pool that doesn't quite look like any tide pool you've ever seen. The water is murkier, its chemistry strange, and beneath the surface, creatures stir. They are not fish as you know them, not even really animals that would feel familiar if you scooped them up in your hands. But here, in these warm, shallow seas, the first vertebrates, creatures with backbones, or at least the beginnings of them, begin their quiet journey. You lean down, resting your hand on a stone that isn't a stone at all, but a layered reef of microbial mats hardened over time. It feels slick, ancient, alive with whispers of evolution. The Cambrian had given the world a burst of life, but now the Ordovician takes that promise and settles it into something steadier. You're about 485 million years ago, and you can sense it immediately. The seas are deeper, the continents drifting apart, and the ocean floor is home to an astonishing range of animals. Trilobites are still here, crawling with the confidence of a species that believes it will last forever. Brachiopods, those shell-bearing filter feeders, spread across the seafloor in numbers that would make clams today seem rare. Graptolites, little colonial creatures, dangle like scribbles of dark ink frozen into the water. It's a world of abundance, but what captures your attention now are the vertebrates. They are small, jawless, armored in bony plates that make them look more like little swimming shields than anything you'd call a fish. They are the ostracoderms, early fish that lack jaws, but have begun experimenting with the idea of skeletons. You watch one wiggle through the water, its mouth just a round opening for sucking in detritus. It is not graceful. It looks, in fact, a little clumsy, but it is part of the great story. The story that leads from armor-plated jawless fish to sharks, to salmon, and eventually to the fish on your dinner plate. The seas hum with experimentation. Some creatures float passively, others burrow, some swim with purpose. You watch conodonts flicker past, their long, eel-like bodies vanishing into shadows. For years, scientists had only their microscopic tooth-like fossils, strange little combs and cones of calcium phosphate. Paleontologists puzzled for decades over what sort of animal could possibly have produced them. Were they worms? Tiny mollusks? For nearly a century, no one could agree. Then, in the 1980s, complete fossils revealed their true nature. Slender, eel-like vertebrates with complex feeding apparatus. You smile at the thought of scholars staring at a tooth under a microscope and arguing, only for the answer to be something so unexpected. Not all mysteries are so neatly resolved. Even today, scientists debate why vertebrates chose bones. Bone is heavy. Cartilage is lighter and more flexible. Sharks, for example, stuck with cartilage, and they've done quite well for themselves. So why did other fish invest in dense bony armor? Was it for protection from predators? A way to store minerals? Or just one of evolution's quirks, an accident that proved successful? You crouch at the water's edge and watch as two armored fish bump against each other, their plates clanking softly in the currents, as if trying to answer your question with their very existence. The Ordovician is also a time of reefs, vast coral-like structures, though not built yet by corals. Instead, bryozoans and sponges and other early calcifiers create networks of life. You swim gently through one, and it feels like gliding through a forest of stone. Schools of tiny filter feeders cloud the water, each one a mouth open to catch drifting plankton. It's here that early fish find protection, darting between nooks and crannies, inventing the behaviors that will serve their descendants for hundreds of millions of years. Above the waves, the continents are quiet. Plants have begun their first tentative steps onto land. You kneel on a muddy shore and spot them, tiny green fuzz clinging to wet rocks, liverworts and moss-like pioneers. They are small, so fragile you could crush them without noticing. But they represent a monumental shift. For the first time, photosynthesis is expanding beyond the ocean. These little patches of green will one day transform the air itself. You brush your hand along one and feel its damp softness, not realizing you are touching the beginning of forests. The air, though, is still not for you. Oxygen levels are lower than what your lungs demand, and carbon dioxide is higher. You imagine taking a breath and coughing instantly, your chest rebelling. Yet, for the creatures here, it is enough. In fact, it is more than enough. It fuels a planet teeming with invertebrates, fish, and plants that will alter everything. But life's journey is never smooth. Around 443 million years ago, the Earth tips into one of its first great extinctions. You look out over the seas and watch as ice sheets begin to creep across Gondwana, one of the ancient supercontinents. Temperatures plummet, sea levels drop, and shallow marine habitats, the nurseries of life, vanish. Brachiopods, trilobites, graptolites all suffer massive losses. Some 85% of marine species disappear. You stand on a frozen shore, your breath fogging, listening to the silence where reefs once buzzed with life. And yet, life does not end. It retreats, reorganizes, and adapts. Survivors spread again, filling the spaces left empty. It is a cycle you'll come to recognize. Flourish, collapse, recover. The vertebrates, those awkward little fish, persist. They survive, refine their bodies, and push forward. You follow them as time flows on, watching their skeletons strengthen, their muscles streamline, their fins grow more dexterous. Slowly, imperceptibly, they become better swimmers. Some develop paired fins, forefins and hind fins that act like primitive limbs. You watch one dart sideways with surprising agility, a move that would have been impossible for its ancestors. The Devonian will come soon, and with it, the true age of fish. But already, here in the Ordovician and Silurian, you sense the future. You can almost imagine a fish wriggling too close to the shore, its fins pushing awkwardly against the mud, gasping at the thin air above. It is not yet time, but the land is calling. Here's a quirky detail to savor. One group of early fish, called heterostracans, had armor so heavy they probably couldn't swim very well. Some scientists think they might have lived like underwater Roombas, vacuuming detritus from the seafloor while their armor protected them from anything that might take a bite. You picture one bumping lazily along, its fins flapping without urgency, a strange little knight in shining armor drifting through the depths. And so you linger, standing between water and land, between past and possibility. The seas behind you are alive with creatures armored and soft, predators and prey. The land ahead whispers with mosses and fungi, patient, waiting for bold travelers to crawl onto its soil. Above, the sky glows faintly with sunlight, and the earth feels as if it is holding its breath. The stage is set, the actors rehearsing. In a few million years, the first great leap onto land will begin. You sit quietly, hearing the waves lap against the ancient shore. A trilobite scuttles past, a jawless fish wiggles in the shallows, and a patch of green clings stubbornly to a rock. It is simple, it is fragile, and yet it is everything. The shore you rest upon hums with a quiet energy, as though the earth itself knows that something remarkable is about to unfold. The waters are warmer now, the continents drifting into new arrangements, and the seas are richer than they have ever been. It is the Cambrian no longer, nor the Ordovician with its frozen catastrophe. You stand now at the dawn of the Devonian, about 419 million years ago. And the world is entering what some call the age of fishes. You step carefully into the shallows, and the water comes alive around you. Schools of placoderms, fish armored in bony plates like underwater tanks, move with startling power. They are predators in a way nothing before them has been. Massive jaws filled with sharp edges of bone, mouths that can snap through armor and flesh alike. One swims past you, Dunkleosteus, a monster of its time, its head as long as your entire body. Its eyes glimmer with that cold, ancient hunger of the predator who knows no rival. You flinch instinctively, though you know it cannot see you, cannot harm you. Still, the shiver is real. Even the waves seem to hush when it glides by. But the Devonian seas are not just about terror. They are about diversity. Sharks, too, make their debut, their cartilaginous skeletons giving them speed and agility, unlike their armored cousins. They dart with precision, sleek shadows among the reefs. Smaller fish, with scales shimmering like polished coins, swarm in schools, their movements synchronized into living clouds of silver. You drift among them, the water cool, the light dancing as though the surface were a stained glass window. Beneath you, the seafloor is alive with corals. Real corals now, not just sponges and microbial mats pretending to be reefs. They build vast structures, colorful gardens where fish hide and hunt. You brush your fingers against one, its surface hard but delicate, a lattice of stone made by tiny living creatures. It reminds you of lace, frozen mid-breath. And in these reefs, you see the true drama of life. Predator and prey, cooperation and competition, every niche being filled by something new. It is here, in this vibrant ocean, that vertebrates truly claim their place. Their fins grow stronger, more precise. Their jaws, an innovation as revolutionary as fire will be for humans, allow them to grasp, bite, and process food in entirely new ways. You can almost hear the click of evolution's gears as it spins forward. The world feels faster now, as if life itself has pressed down on the accelerator. But it is not the sea alone that tells the story. You turn inland, away from the water's edge, and you notice something astonishing. The land is no longer bare rock and mossy patches. Fern-like plants rise in clusters, their fronds unfurling toward the sun. Some stand waist-high, others taller, their roots digging deep into the soil. They are still primitive, without flowers or seeds, but they are forests in the making. And the forests change everything. You walk among them, brushing against leaves that feel rough and waxy, built to conserve water. The air here is humid, and you take a deep breath. It feels different from the air you inhaled at the Ordovician shore. It is richer in oxygen now, thanks to these plants, and it will only grow richer as they spread. You glance upward, and above the plants, the first true trees begin to rise. They are lycophytes and archaeopterids, their trunks woody, their branches stretching like fingers into the sky. Their presence reshapes the land. They anchor soils, alter rivers, and provide shade where once there was none. And with plants come animals. At your feet, something scurries. You kneel to see it more closely. And there, tiny and delicate, is one of Earth's first true insects. Wingless, soft-bodied, it crawls through the damp leaf litter, seeking food, exploring. It is hard to believe that this humble little crawler will one day give rise to dragonflies, beetles, butterflies, ants. But here it is, a pioneer in its own right. The land is no longer silent. You hear the rustle of fronds in the breeze, the trickle of a stream reshaped by roots, the faint hum of insects beginning to fill the air. And then you notice something else. A fish, wriggling near the water's edge, its fins pushing awkwardly against the mud. It gasps, its gills flaring, but above its head, small sacs filled with air. The beginnings of lungs quiver as it tries to breathe. This is Tiktaalik, or something like it. A creature caught between two worlds. It has fins, yes. But inside those fins are bones that look suspiciously like wrists. It can push itself up, peer above the surface, and drag itself across the mud for short distances. You crouch low and watch as it shuffles, ungainly but determined. It is the first whisper of a revolution. Scientists still argue whether Tiktaalik should be called a fish or an amphibian. It sits in that blurred space between a transitional form that defies easy labels. But what is clear is that it represents the audacity of life to try something new, to leave the safety of water and risk the unknown land. You smile because you know how this gamble will pay off. The Devonian is a time of grandeur, but also of shadow. For all its abundance, it ends with crisis. You see it begin slowly, almost imperceptibly, as plants spread farther inland. Their roots draw nutrients from the soil, and when those nutrients wash into rivers and seas, they trigger massive algal blooms. Oxygen levels in the oceans plummet, and fish suffocate in waters once teeming with life. Reef systems collapse. The seas grow stagnant. It is not a sudden apocalypse, but a drawn-out struggle, a long exhale of decline. Some scientists believe asteroid impacts also played a role, their dust dimming the sun and cooling the climate. Others point to volcanic eruptions, pouring carbon dioxide into the skies. The truth may be a mixture, or something else entirely. Scholars still debate, shrugging over cores of rock and fossil evidence that don't quite tell a complete story. You stand in the middle of it all, watching once vibrant reefs fade into barren plains, fish gasping, forests struggling. The Devonian closes with a series of extinctions that wipe out much of its wonder. And yet, as always, life finds a way to endure. The armored placoderms vanish, but their cousins, the sharks, the ray-finned fish, the lobe-finned fish, survive. From them, the lineage continues. From them, amphibians will rise, reptiles will follow, mammals will dream. You feel a strange comfort in this rhythm. Flourish, collapse, recover. The earth inhales, the earth exhales. Life bends, but it does not break. Before you leave this time, you sit once more by the water's edge. The forest behind you whispers in the wind, the insects buzz faintly, and a fish with stubby fins pushes itself a little farther onto the mud. It is not elegant, not yet, but you can sense the inevitability of it. Someday creatures will run here, leap, fly. Someday the land will be alive with dinosaurs, mammals, and humans. But it begins here, in this quiet, awkward moment. With one fish and a patch of damp earth, you lean back, close your eyes, and hear the heartbeat of a world in transition. The age of fishes has sung its song, and now the stage is ready for the next great act. The forest you sit beside is thicker now, its canopy stretching upward like a cathedral roof. It has been millions of years since the Devonian seas began to sour, and life has not retreated. It has adapted, shifted, grown bolder. You rise and take a slow walk beneath the towering lycophytes and horsetails, their trunks as wide as columns, their fronds arching in every direction. They are not trees, as you would recognize today. They have no flowers, no fruits, only spores drifting through the air like motes of dust in a sunbeam. But together, they weave an environment both alien and familiar. A deep forest that hums with possibility. You pause and breathe deeply. The air feels different again. Oxygen levels are climbing, fed by these vast swamps and their endless photosynthesis. Scholars believe that oxygen may have reached levels far higher than today, up to 35% of the atmosphere. It is invisible, of course, but you can feel its presence in the vitality of this forest, in the way insects and animals take advantage of it. And then, with a soft buzzing, you see the evidence. A shadow passes overhead. You glance upward and feel your mouth fall open. A dragonfly, but not as you know it. Its wings stretch longer than your arm span, nearly the width of an eagle. Meganeura, they call it, a dragonfly ancestor, gliding with the effortless grace of a hawk. Its body gleams iridescent, its wings casting a shimmer of green light as it sails past. It settles onto a branch, its legs gripping like hooks, its eyes the size of marbles scanning for prey. The reason it can exist, of course, is the oxygen. With air so rich, insects can grow far larger than in your world. You watch as it launches again, and you can almost hear the beat of its wings, like paper snapping in the wind. Beneath your feet, something stirs. a salamander-like creature, broad-bodied with stubby legs, slides across the damp soil. It pauses, raises its head, and blinks. It is an early amphibian, caught between the water and land just as Tiktaalik once was. Its lungs draw in the oxygen-rich air, and though its movements are clumsy, it is at home here in a way no fish ever could be. You crouch beside it, noticing the small ridges along its back, the slickness of its skin. It glances at you, though of course it cannot see you, and continues on, vanishing into a pool of shallow water shaded by fern fronds. These amphibians dominate the swamps, growing larger, stronger, more specialized. Some return to the water entirely, their bodies elongated into eel-like swimmers. Others venture farther inland, their legs sturdy enough to carry them across roots and mud. You marvel at their determination, their endless tinkering with form and function, as if evolution itself were sketching and erasing ideas on the canvas of time. You step carefully, the ground squishing beneath your feet. It feels unstable, and you realize why. These swampy forests are building something immense beneath the surface. The plants here grow quickly, their tissues filled with tough compounds resistant to decay. When they die, they pile into thick mats, layer upon layer, unable to break down fully in the oxygen-rich but swampy, acidic soils. Over millions of years, these mats will compress into coal. You run your hand across the dark, damp ground and smile faintly. Someday, far in the future, humans will mine this buried sunlight, burn it, and reshape the planet again. But right now, it is simply potential energy, waiting patiently beneath your feet. As you move deeper into the Carboniferous world, you notice reptiles appearing for the first time. They are small, barely larger than your hand, but their difference is profound. Unlike amphibians, they lay eggs with protective shells, freeing them from the need to return to water to reproduce. You watch one scuttle up the side of a tree trunk, claws gripping bark, its scales gleaming in the dappled light. Its eyes flash with a predator's curiosity, its tongue flicking at the air. It is unassuming, but it represents a revolution. The conquest of dry land, the beginning of reptiles, and eventually, the lineage that will lead to dinosaurs, birds, and mammals. The world itself hums with this expansion of life, but it is not without challenges. Periodically, the climate shifts. Ice sheets advance at the poles, lowering sea levels and reshaping coastlines. Swamps dry, then flood again. Species rise and fall in this constant dance of change. You sit on a fallen log and think about the rhythm of extinction and survival that has already played out so many times. Life never stops moving, never stops adapting. It is restless in a way that feels strangely human. And then you hear a rustle, a sound different from the amphibian's splash or the insect's hum. You turn your head slowly and see a massive millipede crawl across the forest floor. Its body is segmented, its legs numbering in the hundreds, each step a wave of motion. It is Arthroplura, a millipede longer than a man, sliding like a train through the underbrush. Its shell gleams with dampness, its movement steady and sure. You step back instinctively, though it poses no threat to you. It feeds mostly on plants. Still, the sheer size of it leaves you in awe. This is what happens when the air itself grants creatures permission to grow enormous. But just as you settle into the richness of this world, you notice changes on the horizon. The Carboniferous is not eternal. As the swamps continue to lay down thick mats of organic matter, as climates shift and continents collide, the Earth once again tips toward instability. The forests you walk through will eventually dwindle, their oxygen surge fading, their coal seams locked beneath layers of stone. The amphibians, once rulers of the wetlands, will find themselves challenged by the very reptiles they gave rise to. Reptiles, with their durable eggs and scaly skin, can survive in places amphibians cannot. They spread farther, faster, more efficiently. You can sense their quiet triumph in the flick of a lizard's tail, in the unblinking stare of a reptilian eye. The baton is passing, though the race continues. Scholars still debate exactly how the great forests collapsed near the end of this period. Was it climate, drying the swamps into deserts? Was it a sudden change in sea levels or the advance of glaciers? Or was it the sheer buildup of carbon locked away, lowering atmospheric levels and suffocating the very plants that had created the boom? The evidence is murky, the story half told. You sit with the uncertainty and feel strangely at peace. After all, Earth does not write its history in neat chapters. It scribbles, smudges, and rewrites constantly. As night falls over the swampy Carboniferous world, you look upward again. A dragonfly the size of a hawk passes overhead, its silhouette framed against the stars. You imagine the forests stretching endlessly, the amphibians croaking in the distance, the reptiles creeping in the underbrush. It is a world lush and vibrant, but already shifting toward its next chapter. You lie down on the damp ground, the smell of moss and peat filling your nose, and close your eyes. Beneath you, coal slowly forms. Around you, creatures live and die in the eternal cycle. Above you, the air hums with the beat of enormous wings. And within you, there is the steady, soothing awareness that this moment, like all moments, will pass into something new. The swampy hush of the Carboniferous fades. And when you open your eyes again, the world has shifted. The air is still rich with oxygen, but the forests you once wandered are thinning. Where towering lycophytes once stretched toward the sky, there are clearer rings, patches of drier ground, landscapes more rugged, more restless. This is the dawn of the Permian, and you walk into it as though entering an unfamiliar room that has been rearranged while you slept. You step across cracked mud that feels warmer beneath your feet, baked by a sun more insistent than before. The coal swamps that once dominated are retreating, and new plants, seed ferns, conifers, take their place. They are more efficient, better suited for the drier conditions. Their seeds carry protective coatings, allowing them to travel farther, to wait longer before sprouting. You run your hand along the rough bark of one such conifer, feeling its strength, its permanence. The forests of the Permian are not as lush as those of the Carboniferous, but they are sturdier, more adapted to challenge. And then you see them, the animals. The amphibians that once croaked and lumbered through wetlands are fewer now, overshadowed by new rulers of the land, the synapsids. You pause as one ambles past, its body shaped like a stocky lizard, but its posture different, its ribs flaring with every breath. Its teeth, sharp and varied, are not like the uniform cones of reptiles. This is Dimetrodon, perhaps the most famous of the Permian creatures, and despite its reptilian look, it belongs to a lineage that will one day give rise to mammals. Its most striking feature rises from its back, a sail, tall and triangular, composed of elongated spines covered with skin. You watch it bask beneath the sun, angling its sail as though adjusting a great solar panel. Scholars debate the purpose of this sail. Was it for regulating body temperature, for attracting mates, or for intimidating rivals? The truth is uncertain, and you smile at the thought of paleontologists squinting at fossils, wondering if this creature was strutting or shivering. For now, you simply watch as it lumbers on, leaving faint tracks in the dusty soil. The Permian is a time of experiments. You wander across a plain and see therapsids, stockier and more advanced synapsids, with upright legs and powerful jaws. They chew plants with flat molars, slice flesh with serrated teeth, and some even burrow into the ground for shelter. They are strange hybrids, neither fully reptilian nor yet mammalian, but unmistakably inching towards something familiar. One pauses and stares at you with an intensity that makes you shiver. Its eyes hold a spark you have not seen before, a glimmer of warm-blooded metabolism, of quickened life. As you travel, the land itself reminds you that Earth is never still. The continents have shifted, colliding into a single colossal supercontinent, Pangaea. You stand at its heart, where vast deserts stretch as far as you can see, red sands rolling like an ocean of stone. Dust devils swirl lazily in the distance. Here, rain is scarce, rivers few, and life clings to the edges of what water remains. Yet along the coasts and rivers, ecosystems bloom. The seas teem with sharks, ammonites, and armored fish, while reefs, built not of corals but of sponges and algae, decorate the shallows. The ocean, though beautiful, hides a darker side. From time to time, it stagnates, its circulation faltering. Deep waters turn anoxic, deprived of oxygen, and toxic bacteria flourish. You kneel at the edge of a Permian sea and watch the strange stillness of its waves, wondering how far down the lifelessness extends. It is a warning of what is to come. Insects, meanwhile, continue their rule of the air. Though they are no longer growing to carboniferous sizes, they are diverse, efficient, resilient. You watch a beetle crawl across a fallen log, its hard shell gleaming in the sunlight. It raises its wings and buzzes away, leaving you with the faint smell of resin. Life is everywhere, persistent, adapting to every niche. But even as you marvel, you feel a weight pressing on you, a subtle unease. The Permian carries with it the shadow of an ending, one greater than any that has come before. You walk farther, and the signs begin to emerge. Volcanoes roar in the distance, their plumes of ash darkening the skies. They erupt not as fleeting bursts, but as relentless outpourings, covering whole regions with basaltic lava. The Siberian traps, as they will one day be called, spew for hundreds of thousands of years, releasing carbon dioxide and other gases into the atmosphere. The climate warms, the oceans grow acidic, and the delicate balance of life begins to unravel. You sit on a rocky ledge and look out over a forest wilting in the heat. Streams run sluggish, their waters clouded with silt. You hear fewer calls of amphibians, fewer rustles of synapsids in the brush. Even the insects seem quieter, their swarms thinner. The air feels heavy, as though it remembers the weight of carbon accumulating within it. Paleontologists still debate the exact mechanisms of what follows. Was it the volcanic gases, triggering runaway greenhouse effects? Was it ocean stagnation, releasing deadly hydrogen sulfide? Was it a combination of everything, a cascade of disasters? The details blur, but the outcome is undeniable. The great dying arrives. You close your eyes and listen as the Permian slips away. Nearly 90% of marine species vanish, from trilobites to reef builders. On land, forests collapse, animals dwindle, entire lineages disappear. The dragonflies still buzz, the synapsids still cling, but their world has shrunk to a shadow of what it once was. You walk across a barren plain, the skeleton of a dimetrodon bleaching in the sun, its sail cracked like parchment. The silence is profound, broken only by the hiss of wind across stone. You kneel and touch the fossilized remains, tracing the ridges of a creature that once ruled. It is gone, but life, you know, is not extinguished. Somewhere, in hidden valleys and burrows, survivors endure. As the Permian draws to a close, you feel the strangeness of this moment. It is an ending so immense, it nearly empties the earth of sound. And yet, it is also a beginning, For from these ashes, a new age will rise. The reptiles that survive will take center stage, growing into forms stranger and grander than anything seen before. You lie back on the cracked red soil, staring at a sky tinted by volcanic haze. The air tastes metallic, acrid. The land around you is scarred, but you know it will heal. The earth has suffered before, and each time it reshapes itself into something unexpected. The Permian is dying, but the Triassic waits, already stirring with possibility. For now, though, you rest in the quiet aftermath, listening to the faint hum of a world resetting its balance, knowing the next chapter will not be gentle, but it will be magnificent. The silence of the Permian lingers in your ears, like a low hum that refuses to fade. When you blink, the world feels lighter, as if it has shed its skin. You stand at the dawn of the Triassic, a landscape still haunted by the great dying, yet already quickening with new rhythms of survival. The ground is bare in many places, soils eroded, forests shattered. Yet here and there you see green shoots, stubborn ferns unfurling their fronds, lichens spreading across the scarred rock, conifers regaining their grip. Life is rebuilding itself, brick by fragile brick. You wander along a riverbed where the water runs thin and sluggish. Insects skim its surface, always the first opportunists, and tiny amphibians paddle in its shallows. But the giants of the old world are gone. The trilobites that once swarmed oceans are silent, their line extinguished. The grand coal forests are only a memory. You can almost feel the weight of absence, as though the earth itself is exhaling after an illness. And yet, as you lean closer, you notice something else. The survivors are not merely repeating what was lost. They are improvising, inventing, reshaping. Small reptiles scurry across the stones, their bodies leaner, their legs held more upright. They dart quickly, then vanish into the brush. These are archosaurs, the ruling reptiles of the Triassic, an ambitious group that will one day split into two great dynasties, the crocodiles and the dinosaurs. You do not know it yet, but you are watching the early stirrings of rulers that will dominate the next 200 million years. The air feels warmer than before, the climate harsh, deserts sprawling across the supercontinent of Pangaea. You walk across red sands and cracked earth, where only hardy plants cling to life. The heat rises off the ground in shimmering waves. In the distance, dust devils twist like dancers, and you wipe sweat from your brow even though you are only an observer here. You wonder how any creature endures, but endure they do. You hear the hiss of a reptile, and your eyes catch a glimpse of something extraordinary. Coelophysis, one of the first true dinosaurs. It is slender, no taller than your waist, with long legs and a tail that balances its every step. It moves in packs, darting across the floodplains in pursuit of prey. You freeze as they pass, their eyes glinting with calculation. They are not yet the towering giants of future ages, but they are fast, efficient, and already writing the rules of dominance. Nearby, you see another form rising from the dust. Synapsids still linger, those strange mammal-like reptiles that once held sway. They are diminished now, fewer in number, but some are evolving into creatures that resemble small, furry mammals. You crouch as one of these cynodonts emerges from a burrow. Its teeth are differentiated, incisors, canines, molars, and its body seems warm, twitching with rapid breaths. It looks at you with bright, alert eyes before disappearing back underground. You smile at the thought. This fragile survivor carries within it the seeds of your own lineage. The Triassic is a world of pioneers, of experimentation. Everywhere you turn, new shapes are testing the possibilities of life. Some grow armored plates along their backs, Others sprout wings of skin stretched between elongated fingers. You stand at the edge of a cliff and watch as a pterosaur launches itself into the air, catching the wind on wings that seem impossibly thin. Its cry echoes across the canyons, eerie and triumphant. It is not a bird. It is something entirely its own, a flying reptile carving the skies for the first time. The seas, too, are transforming. You kneel at the edge of a shoreline and gaze into waters where ichthyosaurs swim, their bodies sleek like dolphins, though their ancestry lies on land. They dart and twist, hunting fish with toothy jaws, their eyes large and unblinking. Not far away, long-necked plesiosaurs glide like ghostly swans beneath the waves. You can hardly believe these creatures came from the same world that once froze under Snowball Earth or drowned in the Great Dying. The oceans, it seems, always find a way to reinvent themselves. And yet, for all its renewal, the Triassic is still precarious. You sense it in the air, the instability, the unfinished quality of this age. The ecosystems are fragile, often dominated by only a few species. It is as if life is still rehearsing, unsure of its script. Scholars still debate whether this fragility made the Triassic especially vulnerable, setting the stage for yet another extinction at its end. One evening, you sit beneath a conifer tree, its resinous scent heavy in the warm air, and you watch the sun sink across Pangaea's endless horizon. The supercontinent sprawls almost unimaginably, stretching from pole to pole, its interior deserts vast and punishing. You imagine walking across it, weeks without water, months without shade, the monotony of sand and stone pressing on your senses. Perhaps that is why so many of the Triassic's creatures hug the coastlines and rivers, clinging to the margins where life is more forgiving. A quirky thought strikes you as you observe a herd of strange, armored reptiles grazing by a stream. They are etosaurs, squat creatures with pig-like snouts and backs plated with bony armor. Some paleontologists once mistook their fossils for those of giant turtles, though their resemblance ends at the shell. You chuckle at the idea of scholars in dusty rooms puzzling over bones, arguing over whether they belong to lumbering tortoises or armored pigs. In truth, they are neither. They are simply their own experiment in survival. The Triassic draws on, and slowly, steadily, dinosaurs rise. They are not yet kings, but each generation grows more capable. Larger species appear, like Plateosaurus, one of the first giant herbivores. You step aside as it lumbers past, its long neck sweeping low to cropped ferns, its tail dragging a furrow in the soil. It towers above you, yet you sense it is only a shadow of what is to come. Time passes, and you feel the earth trembling again, uneasy. Volcanic rumbles echo across the land. The supercontinent shifts, rifting apart. Lava fountains burst along fault lines, pouring across the ground in glowing rivers. Ash darkens the skies. Carbon dioxide floods the air, heating the climate. Acid rain stings the forests. Life, so carefully rebuilt, is once again tested. This is the Triassic-Jurassic extinction, a quieter cousin to the Great Dying, yet still devastating. Many synapsids vanish, their dwindling line reduced to only the smallest survivors that will become mammals. Amphibians shrink in diversity, struggling in the heat. And yet, the dinosaurs remain. They not only endure, they flourish. You stand on a ridge, watching the aftermath. The landscape is scarred, but dinosaurs walk with surer steps now, their ranks spreading into niches left empty. Where once they were just one experiment among many, they are now the victors. Their reign is secured. As you walk on, the Triassic fades, and with it, the uneasy fragility of a recovering world. Ahead lies the Jurassic, an age of lush forests and colossal beasts, where dinosaurs will grow into creatures that dominate not just the land, but the imagination. of every child and dreamer yet to come. But for now, you pause, breathing in the last warmth of the Triassic sun, knowing the stage is set for grandeur unlike anything the Earth has ever seen. The Triassic dusk still lingers in your mind, but when you open your eyes again, the world has changed. It is greener now, softer and richer, as though the Earth has exhaled after centuries of fire and ash. You have stepped into the Jurassic, a time when life is no longer fragile but flourishing, spilling into every niche of land, sea, and sky. You can almost hear the hum of abundance, the buzzing of insects among cycads, the distant crash of waves along newborn coastlines, and the thunder of footsteps from creatures larger than anything your imagination dared to conjure before. The continents are stirring, beginning to drift apart from the embrace of Pangaea. You walk across forests where towering conifers stretch toward the heavens, their trunks wrapped in moss, their branches sheltering ferns that spread like green lace beneath them. The air is humid, warm, filled with the scent of resin and loam. When you brush past a cluster of horsetails, their tall, jointed stalks rattle faintly, like bones whispering in the wind. You stop to listen, aware that this is the sound of a world thick with life. The first call that startles you is not of a bird, but of a reptile with wings. A pterosaur, its leathery wings stretched wide, gliding over the canopy. Its shadow glances across your path, and you lift your eyes to see its crest catching the sunlight, bright as a banner. They are not dinosaurs, though people often confuse them. They are their own line of reptiles, conquering the sky in a way nothing had before. You find yourself holding your breath as one dips low, its long beak snapping up a fish from a river, before rising again with effortless grace. You wonder what it must feel like to ride the warm thermals over this lush planet, surveying an empire of green. But the kings of the Jurassic are not in the air. They are on the ground. You step carefully as the earth shakes, a deep vibration you can feel in your chest. Ahead, through the curtain of trees, an immense shape emerges. A sauropod, one of the long-necked giants, strides slowly but surely across the floodplain. Its neck alone stretches longer than a bus, reaching into the treetops with ease. The ground seems to bow under its weight, yet it moves with surprising calm, each step measured and deliberate. You tilt your head back until your neck aches, trying to see its head vanish into the canopy as it plucks leaves from heights unreachable to any other animal. This is a new order of life. The sauropods, the largest land animals to ever exist. You trace the line of its body, from the arching neck to the vast barrel of its torso, down to the sweeping tail that cracks the air like a whip. You wonder how it survives, how such a creature feeds its endless hunger. Paleontologists still puzzle over that question, arguing whether these giants swallowed stones to help grind food in their bellies, or whether their entire digestive systems were long, slow fermentation vats. All you know is that as you stand beneath its shadow, you feel like a blade of grass at the foot of a mountain. And the sauropods are not alone. Herds of them move together, necks weaving like a living forest, tails swaying in rhythm. You think of elephants on the savannah, their social bonds, their migrations, their quiet communication. Perhaps these giants, too, spoke in low rumbles, vibrations too deep for your ears, calling to one another across the Jurassic plains. You imagine sleeping beneath such a herd, their footsteps like lullabies, their presence a reminder that life, once fragile, has found its strength again. Yet for every gentle herbivore, there is a shadow waiting in the wings. You turn at the sound of a sharper step, lighter, quicker. There in the underbrush, a predator watches. Its body is sleek, its arms short but muscular, its jaws lined with teeth that curve like sickles. This is an early theropod, cousin to the line that will one day include Tyrannosaurus, though for now it is Allosaurus that reigns supreme. It circles, eyes fixed on the herd, waiting for the weak, the straggler, the young. You watch the tension unfold like a silent drama. The sauropods are immense, but they are not invulnerable. Their young are small, and it is toward them that the predator's gaze lingers. A rush of speed, a sudden cry, and the chase begins. Dust clouds rise, tails lash, and the earth quakes with the clash of survival. You do not stay to see the end. Perhaps the young will escape into the shelter of the herd. Perhaps not. Either way, it is a reminder that even in this world of abundance, life remains a constant negotiation between predator and prey. You step away from the plains into a wetter place where the ground squelches beneath your feet. Swamps still dot the Jurassic, their stagnant waters rich with insects and amphibians. The croak of frogs echoes in the twilight, and dragonflies with wingspans as long as your arm buzz past your ear. You crouch to watch a tiny creature slip from the reeds, a small, mouse-sized insectivore, its body covered in a fuzz that is not quite fur but not quite scales. It darts, snatches a beetle, and vanishes into the undergrowth. You smile, knowing that while dinosaurs rule the day, mammals are quietly surviving in the shadows. They are no longer just odd little synapsides. They are warm, quick, adaptable. Their time has not yet come, but it will. The oceans, too, sing with new life. You walk to the shore and kneel where the waves lap at your toes. Out at sea, a massive shape breaks the surface. A pliosaur, jaws gaping, teeth glinting as it snaps up a fish. Its head alone is larger than a man, its body thick and powerful. Flippers churning the water like oars. Ichthyosaurs dart away, their dolphin-like forms flashing in the light as they flee. The seas of the Jurassic are kingdoms in their own right, filled with predators as fearsome as anything on land. Historians of the Earth still debate the exact pace of change during this age. Did dinosaurs slowly and steadily expand into dominance? Or was their rise accelerated by sudden environmental shifts? The record is fragmented, broken by the whims of fossilization. You picture bones lying in mud for millions of years, waiting for chance to bury them, preserve them, and someday whisper their story to those who would listen. Much of what you see, you realize, is guesswork. Educated, patient, inspired guesswork. And in the middle of it all, the Earth itself shifts. You feel the rumble beneath your feet, the slow pull of continents parting. The Atlantic Ocean begins to open, a crack widening into a sea, then into an ocean that will one day separate the old world from the new. Volcanoes trace these rifts, their smoke staining the skies, their lava carving new coastlines. The Earth is restless, always reshaping, and you, walking upon it, feel like a passenger on a ship that is forever changing its sails. You pause at the edge of a lagoon, where the water glimmers with strange reflections. At first you think it is the light, but then you realize there are tracks, gigantic footprints pressed into the mud, frozen in time. They belong to dinosaurs, yet they look almost fresh, as though their makers have only just passed. You kneel, touch the impression of a three-toed foot, and imagine the creature that left it. There is something deeply human in this act, this tracing of ancient footsteps, this recognition that others walked here long before you. Night falls gently over the Jurassic. You lie back among ferns, the stars above clearer than in any modern sky. For there are no cities, no lights, no haze to blur them. The Milky Way stretches in a radiant arc, a reminder that the universe beyond Earth has been constant even as the planet itself transforms. Somewhere out there, meteors still wander, and one day, one of them will fall again. But not tonight. Tonight belongs to the dinosaurs. A rustle startles you. A small creature flits through the branches. You look up, and for a moment you are confused. It looks like a bird, but not quite. Feathers shimmer in the dim light. Wings beat, but the face, the claws, the long tail, all betray its reptilian heritage. This is Archaeopteryx, a creature caught between worlds, bridging reptiles and birds. It lands on a branch, cocks its head, and lets out a harsh, croaking call. You realize you are seeing the dawn of flight, not in reptiles with skin wings, but in feathered bodies that will one day sing in every forest and field. You smile, drowsy and content. The Jurassic hums with energy, but it is not threatening. It is a cradle of giants, of experiments, of promise. You feel safe enough to drift, lulled by the rhythm of ancient footsteps, the splash of ocean predators, the flap of wings that will one day become birdsong. The Earth has entered an age of majesty, and though you know it cannot last forever, tonight you let yourself rest in the dream of dinosaurs beneath the stars. When your eyes open again, the Jurassic dawn has passed, and the Earth has slipped quietly into its next chapter, the Cretaceous. The air feels warmer, thicker, heavy with scents of resin and blossoms, because something new has arrived in the world. Flowers. You wander through a forest where bright petals splash color among the greens of cycads and conifers, their nectar luring insects that buzz with a kind of urgency you haven't heard before. Bees hum lazily among the blooms, butterflies flicker like tiny shards of light, and you realize you are witnessing the beginning of a partnership that will shape the future. Pollinators and flowers working together, an alliance of sweetness and survival. The Earth's continents are no longer bound together. By now, Pangaea has fractured into drifting pieces, and the oceans widen between them. You walk along the coast of what will one day be Europe, but right now it is a scatter of islands, like jewels tossed into a shallow sea. The waters are warm, cradled by currents that swirl nutrients to the surface, and the reefs here are alive with clamorous color. Corals glow, fish flicker in schools, and marine reptiles prowl between them. You watch a mosasaur break the surface, jaws lined with teeth, its body thrashing like a living torpedo. It is not a dinosaur, though many think of it as one. It is a lizard's descendant, a return to the sea, where it has grown immense and merciless. On land, the dinosaurs continue to rule, but they have diversified into new forms. You wander into a clearing where a herd of ceratopsians grazes. They are strange and magnificent. Squat, heavy bodies armored with horns, and frills that rise like crowns from their skulls. One lowers its head and snorts, a bellow rolling across the grasslands. Another flicks its massive neck shield, catching the light. Scientists still debate whether these frills were for protection or for display or for regulating heat. You watch them lock horns briefly in a clash of dust and sound, and you suspect it was all of those things. A shield, a signal, a stage for power and beauty. Nearby, smaller creatures dart about, some feathered, some scaled. You pause to watch a small dromaeosaur, the kind of predator that will one day give rise to Velociraptor. It moves with intelligence, eyes keen, feathers bristling along its arms. It tilts its head at you, curious, before vanishing into the brush with a hiss. You smile, knowing these are not the clumsy beasts people once imagined. They are fast, clever, alive with energy. The world of the Cretaceous is one of drama, but also of intimacy. You step closer to a pond, where tiny mammals scurry among roots. They are no longer only furtive insect eaters. Some climb trees with agile fingers, some glide between branches, and some dig burrows with determination. You kneel to watch one, no larger than a rat, slip out of its hole. Its whiskers twitch, its nose quivers, and for a moment, you see yourself reflected in its resilience. These little creatures will survive when giants fall, and in them lies the quiet promise of what is to come. But for now, giants still walk. You hear it before you see it, the steady thunder of footsteps, the air vibrating with weight. You turn, and there, across the plain, strides a Tyrannosaurus rex. Its head looms like a boulder, jaws powerful enough to crush bone, eyes sharp with predatory intent. It is larger than you dared imagine, each step shaking dust from the earth. You freeze, though you know it cannot see you, and watch as it lowers its head to sniff the air. It lets out a low, guttural roar that echoes across the landscape, sending smaller creatures scattering. Tyrannosaurus is the apex predator of this world, but even it must contend with change. The Earth itself is restless. Volcanoes rise, seas flood continents, and new ecosystems bloom and vanish in cycles of fire and flood. You walk along a riverbank and find a patch of land rippled with tracks, prints of hadrosaurs, their duck-billed snouts pointed toward the horizon as they migrate. They move in herds, their calls echoing like music, a chorus of low honks that vibrates in your chest. You imagine them traveling season after season, raising young, grazing on flowering plants, and you see how life adapts, how it grows into every possibility, and yet something in the air feels uneasy. Perhaps it is hindsight, or perhaps the Earth itself knows. You stand one evening and look up at the stars, clearer here than in any modern sky. They seem calm, steady, eternal. But you know one of them hides a secret. A rock, enormous, unyielding, drifting closer with each turn of the heavens. Still, the Cretaceous carries on, unaware. You wander to a forest edge, where Archaeopteryx descendants flit through the branches. True birds have taken to the skies now, their feathers refined for flight, their calls bright and musical. You watch them chase insects, build nests, and you marvel at how quickly life evolves. From teeth to beaks, from claws to wings, from cold blood to warm. It is not a sudden leap, but a gradual unfolding, one you are privileged to witness. Historians and paleontologists argue about the details. Was Tyrannosaurus a solitary hunter or a social creature? Did ceratopsians truly clash head to head? Or were their displays more ritualistic? Did flowering plants spread quickly across the globe? Or was it a slow conquest of ecosystems? The fossil record gives hints, whispers, but not certainty. You find yourself walking among those uncertainties, your mind full of images half-formed, stories half-told. You climb a ridge and look out over the land. It is vibrant, full, alive, a world at its peak. Herds graze, predators hunt, insects buzz, flowers bloom, seas teem with leviathans. It feels eternal, unshakable. But deep in your chest, you know what comes next. One afternoon, the sky darkens, not with storm clouds, but with something brighter. You glance up and see a streak of fire tearing across the heavens, blazing a trail of doom. The ground trembles, the air quakes, and then impact. You don't feel it directly, but you hear it, a sound that seems to split the earth itself. The air rushes hot, winds scream, forests ignite, and waves rise. Dust billows into the sky, blotting out the sun. You stand frozen as the world darkens, as day turns to endless night, as life itself falters. Dinosaurs stagger, forests burn, Oceans churn with chaos. You close your eyes, unable to watch, but unable to forget. The age of giants, so full of power and promise, ends in a breath, in a moment of fire and stone. When silence comes again, it is heavy, smothering. The earth is wounded, scarred, hushed. And yet, you hear a rustle in the undergrowth. A tiny mammal emerges, whiskers twitching, nose searching for food. It survives. Somewhere in the canopy, a bird lifts its head and calls, fragile but defiant. Life, battered and broken, continues. You exhale, the weight of extinction pressing on you. The Cretaceous has ended, but Earth has not. The world will heal, regrow, reimagine itself. The giants are gone, but in their place, new stories will begin. You let the darkness fold around you, knowing the next chapter is waiting, already stirring in the silence. When you open your eyes again, the air is different, cooler, thinner, and quieter. The age of dinosaurs has ended in fire and dust, and now the world seems like it is holding its breath. You stand among the remains of a forest that once stretched green and endless, but now it is scarred with blackened trunks and ash. The Cretaceous world has closed its book, and in its silence begins a new story. The Paleogene, you kneel to touch the ground, still cracked from ancient heat. At first, it feels empty, stripped bare. The great beasts that roared and thundered across the earth are gone, wiped away in a heartbeat. Yet as you wait, you notice small movements. Tiny paws scurrying among the roots, the flash of wings overhead, the rustle of leaves pushed by something small. Life has survived, and in its resilience lies the seed of everything yet to come. The mammals rise slowly, cautiously, as though peeking out from hiding after eons in the shadows. At first, they are small and unassuming. Creatures no larger than cats, scuttling through underbrush, nibbling seeds, insects, and fruits. You watch one with wide, glassy eyes, climbing along a branch, its fingers dexterous, its tail helping it balance. It pauses to sniff the air, nose twitching, before leaping lightly to another branch. In it, you see the early promise of primates. A faint echo of yourself reflected in a tiny heartbeat. The earth itself feels quieter, but not still. Forests regrow. Green spills once more over scarred landscapes, and flowers open again to greet the sun. The partnership of bees and blossoms resumes, humming with persistence. Insects scatter pollen, birds swoop through trees, mammals scamper through grasslands that begin to stretch wider. It is a world healing, slowly, determinedly, like a wounded animal knitting itself whole. And with this healing comes new giants. Not dinosaurs, not reptiles, but mammals. You walk across a plain where massive herbivores graze. Some look like oversized pigs, others like hornless rhinos. They are ungainly, awkward, yet strangely majestic. They carry the bulk once reserved for dinosaurs, though their forms are softer, furred, more mammalian in essence. You pause to watch a group of brontotheres lumbering across the grass. Their snorts cloud the air, their feet pressed deep into the soil, and their paired horns jut forward like strange, prehistoric experiments in weaponry. The seas, too, change. With the fall of marine reptiles, mammals enter the waves. You stand on a rocky shore and watch as early whales glide beneath the surface. They are not the whales you know yet. Still bearing traces of legs, their bodies long and sinuous, like creatures caught between land and sea. They roll and dive, chasing fish, their calls echoing faintly, carrying notes of a song that will one day stretch across oceans. And in the skies, birds grow bolder. No longer small and tentative, some now spread wingspans that darken the ground below. You look up and see an enormous bird, a terror bird, stalking across the land. Its beak is hooked and cruel, its legs powerful. It cannot fly, but it does not need to. With each step, it strides like a predator claiming territory. Smaller mammals scatter at its approach, knowing instinctively that its strike is swift and merciless. You watch it pause, tilt its head, and let out a hollow cry that echoes across the plain. Yet, despite predators, mammals thrive. They adapt, multiply, and diversify. In the space of millions of years, the Earth becomes a canvas of mammalian creativity. You walk through forests where tiny lemur-like creatures leap among branches, through rivers where hippo-like beasts wallow, through hills where herds of horse ancestors run with slender legs and small, multi-toed hooves. They are not yet the horses you know, but in their grace, you can see the outline of what will come. Scholars still debate the details of this age. How quickly did mammals expand into niches left behind by dinosaurs? Did primates first evolve in Asia or Africa? Were the first whales truly fully aquatic, or did they still clamber awkwardly onto shore between swims? The fossil record leaves spaces, gaps, mysteries. You walk among those uncertainties, imagining the many ways this world could have unfolded. The climate itself shapes life's path. For much of this age, the Earth is warm, balmy, blanketed by lush forests, even at higher latitudes. You wander near what will one day be the Arctic Circle, and yet you find swamps, crocodiles basking in the sun, and trees thick with leaves. The warmth wraps the planet in a cloak of abundance, but nothing lasts forever. Slowly, inevitably, shifts begin. Currents in the ocean change, land masses drift further apart, and climates tilt toward new balances. As you walk, you find yourself among grasses, which begin to spread like whispers across the land. At first, they are sparse, patches of green among forests, but they are persistent. With each passing epoch, grasses conquer more ground, opening new possibilities for grazers, for herds, for migrations that will shape the rhythm of future landscapes. You bend down, brushing your fingers across a blade of grass, simple yet revolutionary. Then, among the shadows of the Paleogene, you encounter something stranger. In the forests, a massive mammal looms. Paraceratherium, the largest land mammal to ever live. It rises above the trees, its neck long, its body towering like a moving mountain. It browses on high branches, stripping leaves with lips thick and strong. You stand in awe, dwarfed by its sheer size, realizing this is what the world offers in the absence of dinosaurs. A mammal that tries to fill the role of giant, but not all is serene. Beneath the surface of oceans, shifts occur. Carbon dioxide rises, climates tip, extinctions ripple quietly through ecosystems. You notice that certain forests seem thinner, certain species vanish. The Earth has survived impact and fire, but it continues to test itself, balancing on the edge of change. And yet, life adapts again. Small primates continue to evolve, their brains enlarging, their hands more nimble. You watch one cradle a piece of fruit, peel it with dexterity, and eat with slow concentration. The intelligence in its eyes unsettles you. It is a faint echo of something to come, something that feels closer to you than anything else you have seen so far. Historians and paleontologists argue about these early primates. Were they already social, grooming and caring for one another as modern monkeys do? Did they already carry the seeds of language, of culture, of thought? You cannot be sure. But watching them leap through branches, chattering and calling, you sense that they are not just surviving, they are imagining. As you wander farther, you come upon signs of continental drama. India collides with Asia, lifting mountains into the sky. The Himalayas, the highest on Earth. You stand at their base, watching peaks rise, snow glittering on summits that pierce the clouds. The collision reshapes climates, reroutes winds, alters rainfall, changing the face of entire continents. You feel small beneath those peaks, knowing they will endure long after you are gone. The Paleogene ends, the Neogene begins, and mammals refine their roles. Horses elongate their limbs, perfecting speed. Elephants grow tusks, shaping landscapes with their strength. Apes grow larger, their arms long for swinging through forests, their eyes searching with a new awareness. The world feels modern now, familiar, though still strange. You sense humanity hovering at the edges, not yet arrived, but waiting. One evening, you find yourself on an open plain, grasses swaying like an endless sea, the air full of the thunder of hooves. Herds of horses, antelope-like creatures, and rhinoceroses surge across the land, predators trailing behind. Lions have not yet arrived, but saber-toothed cats prowl with silent menace. One crouches, muscles rippling, its fangs gleaming as long as daggers. It waits, then pounces, the herd scattering in chaos. The world is fierce, alive with movement. But in a quiet corner of a forest, you return to the primates. They climb, they leap, they chatter. They care for one another. Their eyes meet yours with uncanny familiarity. And in that gaze, you see the faint glimmer of tomorrow. You take a deep breath, feeling the weight of millions of years pressed down on you. Dinosaurs are gone, but their absence has given way to something new. The Earth has reinvented itself once more. You stand on the edge of yet another beginning, the whisper of humanity stirring in the branches overhead. You rise at dawn, the grasslands stretching far in every direction, their blades shimmering with dew under a pale sun. The air feels drier now, more open, the trees scattered in distant clusters rather than forming thick walls of forest. You notice the difference at once. This is no longer the world of swampy warmth and endless jungle. The planet has leaned towards something cooler, something more unpredictable. Welcome to the late Neogene, the moment where Earth begins to resemble the landscapes you might still walk today. You step forward, your feet sinking into soil shaped by hooves, by migrations, by countless herds that roam in cycles dictated by rain and grass. The world hums with motion. This is the great age of mammals, perfected, streamlined, and stretched into forms you recognize. You hear the thunder of hooves long before you see them. Then, in the distance, an entire plain seems to move as one. Horses, true horses now, their legs long and slender, their hooves solid, race across the horizon in vast herds, their manes flickering like fire in the morning light. They gallop with such grace that for a moment you feel as though the ground itself flows beneath them like water. You turn, and the earth shivers beneath the tread of something slower, heavier. Towering elephants wander across the plain, their tusks curving like pale crescents, their trunks swaying with steady rhythm. These are not quite the elephants you know. They are mammoths, mastodons, and other proboscideans, varieties of the same blueprint. Intelligence, memory, and immense power. A matriarch leads her herd, younger calves huddled against her flanks, older sisters walking close, their eyes deep with quiet thought. You feel as though you could fall into those eyes and glimpse generations remembered across time. But not all giants graze in peace. At the edge of the plain, crouched in grasses tall enough to conceal its form, waits a predator. You freeze as you notice the long, curved teeth that jut beyond its lower jaw. A saber-toothed cat, patient and deadly. Its muscles ripple under tawny fur as it creeps closer to the herd, its tail twitching, its eyes locked on a straggler. You remember that pigeon helmet from centuries ago. Silly, impractical. But in this moment, you would gladly wear it for any shred of protection. Yet you know it wouldn't help. Here, only speed, luck, or sheer numbers decide survival. The Earth itself seems restless. Continents continue to drift, mountains rise higher, and the Isthmus of Panama forms, linking North and South America. You stand on the narrow strip of land as waves crash on either side, knowing that this geological bridge will change everything. Armadillo-like glyptodons, sloth relatives the size of bears, and strange marsupials wander north, while saber-toothed cats and mammoths cross south. The continents trade their creatures like children swapping treasures, and ecosystems shift in response. Some flourish, others vanish. But always, life reshapes itself in the face of opportunity. In Africa, where the land dries further, the story grows more personal. You walk into a grove of acacia trees, the air shimmering with heat, and there you find them. Primates that no longer simply swing in trees, but stand. Not constantly, not with ease, but enough. Their legs straighten, their feet press the ground in new ways, their hands free for carrying. These are the Australopithecines, your distant cousins. Small but astonishing. One carries fruit clutched in her arms as she moves through tall grass, glancing over her shoulder for predators. Another cracks a nut with a stone, not yet a tool maker in the true sense, but close enough to stir something in you. Scholars still argue whether bipedalism came first as a necessity for seeing over grasses, or for freeing hands, or for saving energy on long treks. The truth remains buried in fossils and scattered traces. You watch them walk, a little awkward, a little bent, but undeniably upright. And you realize you are watching the rehearsal for humanity itself. Nearby, their world brims with challenges. The saber-tooth waits in shadows. Birds of prey wheel overhead. Even other primates, still content in trees, compete for food and safety. Yet somehow these fragile creatures persist. Their eyes, dark and watchful, seem to hold something. An awareness, a spark, that whispers of futures far beyond their small bodies. You wander onward and find yourself standing at the shore of a lake, where a herd of early horses drink in silence. The lake's surface ripples with the sudden emergence of a creature unlike any you've seen so far. A behemoth rises from the water, its jaw wide, its body massive. Hippopotamus ancestors, heavier and more violent than their modern kin, thrash in the shallows, claiming space with territorial grunts. Fish scatter, birds rise in alarm, and the mammals at the shore retreat, cautious of the fury hidden beneath the still water. Not far away, the ocean itself tells another story. Whales, now fully committed to the sea, glide through deep currents. They sing in low, haunting tones that travel farther than sight, their voices weaving across thousands of miles. You cannot understand the words, but you feel the vibration in your bones, an echo of communication that stretches across oceans. These songs have likely been sung for millions of years, passed down in ways invisible, yet enduring. The climate, as always, shifts its weight. Ice begins to gather at the poles, tentative at first, then bolder. Glaciers creep across northern continents, carving valleys, grinding stone into dust. You walk across one of these icy expanses, the crunch beneath your feet loud in the quiet, and you sense the enormity of what is happening. The Earth is testing its rhythms, cycling between warmth and cold, expansion and retreat. The ice ages begin. With them come extinctions, but also resilience. You watch as shaggy-coated mammoths thrive in frigid landscapes, their fur thick, their tusks curling forward as snowflakes cling to them. Reindeer follow in endless lines, their hooves clicking against frozen ground. Predators adjust too. Wolves, dire and sharp-eyed, chase across snowy fields, their breath steaming in the cold. Even humans, yes, early humans, step cautiously onto this stage. But for now, you linger with the Australopithecines. They climb trees for safety at night, gather berries, crack bones for marrow. You watch as one strikes a stone against another, sparks leaping into the dry grass. He jumps back in shock, then approaches again, curiosity stronger than fear. Did this really happen here, like this? Scholars debate whether fire was first harnessed in this age or later. The uncertainty hangs in the air, but the possibility feels alive in the glow of those accidental sparks. You realize this is the point where the Earth is no longer just shaping creatures, it is shaping stories. Herds migrate, predators stalk, glaciers advance, primates walk, and everything moves in patterns that intertwine. The grasses spread further, the plains grow larger, and the forests retreat, leaving space for new ways of living. As you walk across this late Neogene world, the air filled with distant calls and the scent of grass and dust, you feel the momentum of time pressing you forward. You hear the thrum of hooves, the rumble of mammoth herds, the chatter of primates testing their voices. The earth hums with possibility, preparing the ground for something unprecedented. You take a final look at the small upright figures in the distance, their silhouettes sharp against the setting sun. They are still just animals, fragile and uncertain. Yet in their stance, in their restless eyes, in their clever hands, you see the shadow of yourself. You wake to the crunch of frost beneath your feet, the air sharp enough to sting your lungs. This is no longer the gentle warmth of earlier ages. This is the deep chill of the Pleistocene, the Ice Age, the world sculpted by glaciers and endless migrations. The horizon gleams white, mountains blanketed in sheets of ice that stretch farther than your eyes can follow. Rivers carve their way beneath frozen surfaces, and valleys bear the scars of grinding glaciers. You shiver, pulling an imaginary cloak tighter around you, because without fur or fire, you wouldn't last a single night here. The earth has grown restless again, tilting between warm interludes and bitter freezes. Ice sheets surge forward, then retreat, again and again, like an enormous breath drawn and released over thousands of years. Each pulse redraws coastlines, lowers seas, and exposes new lands. You stand where the Bering Land Bridge once connected Asia to North America, a corridor that animals, and eventually people, will use to cross continents. The ground beneath you feels temporary, a fleeting gift of lowered oceans, destined to vanish when the waters rise again. Around you, life adapts in astonishing ways. A herd of woolly mammoths trudge across the frozen plain, their long hair rippling in the wind, their curved tusks gleaming like pale scythes. Calves stay close to their mothers, who guide them with low rumbles that you feel more than hear. Each step seems to echo across time, the sound of survival etched into the frozen ground. Mammoths are not alone here. Mastodons, their stockier cousins, wander nearby, favoring forested edges over open plains. You turn, and from the shadows of pine trees emerges another presence, the cave bear. Massive, thick-furred, and slow in appearance, but deadly in reality. It huffs, testing the air, its breath fogging in the cold, and you instinctively step back, knowing instinct alone wouldn't save you. Then there are the cats, the saber-toothed predators, their teeth like daggers of ivory. You watch as one crouches low, stalking a young reindeer separated from its herd. Its leap is silent, its strike swift, and the snow is marked by a single violent struggle. Nature here is beauty laced with danger. Yet not all of the giants you meet are predators. A group of ground sloths, enormous, shaggy, slow-moving, trundle through the icy landscape, stripping bark from trees with curved claws. They move like creatures carved from stone, their pace deliberate, their size almost surreal. Nearby, a flock of giant flightless birds, remnants of an older age, wander the open fields. They peck at the frozen earth, their beaks strong enough to crush bone. Strange to think of such birds in a land of snow. But here they persist. Reminders of a time when feathered giants ruled warm grasslands. And then there is the human presence. Small, fragile, yet increasingly significant. You come upon a group of early Homo erectus, clustered around a fire at the mouth of a cave. The flames crackle, shadows dance along the walls, and the humans' faces glow with something beyond warmth. They are learning to master fire, not just stumble upon it. Sparks fly from flint struck against stone, and when the tinder catches, a cheer rises in their throats. A sound so human it makes your chest ache. They huddle close, roasting meat on sticks, trading glances, perhaps even stories. Words are clumsy yet, more gestures than language, but meaning flows between them. You watch a child mimic the motions of striking flint, guided by patient hands. This is more than survival. This is teaching, passing knowledge forward. The difference between them and the other animals becomes clear. Memory stretched not just across lifetimes, but across generations. Still, uncertainty lingers. Scholars debate exactly when language truly began, when symbolic thought took root, when fire became tool instead of accident. You feel this uncertainty like mist in the cave. The boundaries blurred, but you sense that you are watching the birth of culture, flickering alongside the firelight. Outside, the glaciers keep advancing, and with them come extinctions. The great short-faced bear, towering above even the largest grizzlies, dominates North America for a time. But its reign is not eternal. The massive glyptodon, armored like a living tank, trundles southward, only to meet new predators. Each creature that thrives here feels provisional, as though balanced on the edge of a knife. The rhythm of the ice allows no permanence. You step into another camp, further along in time, and find Homo neanderthalensis. Stocky, powerful, adapted for the cold. They chip stone tools with deft precision. Their shelters, built from mammoth bones and covered in hides, form circles against the wind. Inside, the warmth is palpable, and the walls are painted. Yes, painted. Figures of animals, abstract symbols, handprints. You run your fingers along the red ochre lines and feel the thrill of recognition. This is art. This is imagination. These marks are more than decoration. They are messages, prayers, memories carved into stone. It's strange, though, because no one knows for certain why they painted. Was it magic for the hunt? A way to honor spirits? Or simply the joy of leaving a mark behind? Historians still argue, but in the quiet of the cave, surrounded by flickering torchlight, the meaning feels simple enough. They wanted to be remembered. Beyond the caves, Neanderthals and early Homo sapiens overlap. You sense the tension, the mix of interbreeding, competition, and shared landscapes. One group carves a flute from the bone of a bird, pressing holes into its length. A haunting tune drifts through the cold air, notes both strange and familiar. You close your eyes, listening, marveling that even here, in a harsh and unforgiving world, music exists. The planet itself grows harsher still. Sheets of ice stretch further, seas retreat, and winds howl across a barren tundras. Herds of reindeer, bison, and aurochs march in endless cycles, chased by predators and followed by humans with spears tipped in flint. You walk alongside them, your breath clouding, your footsteps crunching in the snow. For all its difficulty, this world is alive with movement, with persistence. And then, as the cycles shift, warmth returns. Glaciers melt back, rivers swell, valleys bloom with green once more. The land bridge across Beringia disappears beneath rising seas, cutting off continents again. Species vanish. Mammoths dwindle, saber-tooths fade, and the ground sloths sink into memory. Humans, however, remain. They adapt, spread, and settle, moving into every corner of the globe. You pause at the threshold of one of their shelters. A family sits together, the older ones telling something, a story, a lesson, to the younger. The flames crackle, shadows stretch, and their words, even if you cannot hear them, carry the weight of history. From here onward, the Earth will never again be shaped only by glaciers and herds. It will be shaped by memory, by thought, by the restless drive of human hands. You step back out into the cold night. Stars glitter overhead, sharp against the darkness, and you realize how long they have watched, how many ages they have witnessed. You hear the wind whistle across the frozen plain, smell the smoke from distant fires, and feel the weight of time pressing you forward. The Ice Age world lingers behind you, fading, but its echoes remain in your bones. Because from here, the story will turn. The great beasts will vanish. The glaciers will retreat. And humans, the small, fragile creatures who warmed themselves by sparks and painted their hands on cave walls, will rise to reshape the Earth itself. The ice thaws. Slowly at first, like a breath drawn after long silence, and then with a steady rhythm that reshapes the world. You stand at the edge of a great meltwater lake, its surface shimmering beneath a pale spring sun. The glacier that once pressed across the land groans as it recedes, rivers roaring in its wake. Valleys carved by ice become fertile plains. Forests spread where tundra once stretched, and the air feels gentler against your skin. The Pleistocene ends, and the Holocene begins, the epoch you now know as home. The Earth warms, seas rise, and the world begins to look almost familiar. Mammoths retreat northward, dwindling to small populations on isolated islands. Saber-tooths vanish into silence. The age of megafauna recedes, and in their place comes the quiet, steady dominance of humans. You walk among them now, but they are not yet city dwellers or farmers. They are hunter-gatherers, bands of families moving with the seasons, following the rhythms of rivers, forests, and plains. Their lives are tethered to the migration of animals, the ripening of berries, the patterns of stars. At night, they gather by firelight, stories passing from lips to ears, memories stitched into words. Language has become fluid now, full of nuance and rhythm. You listen to laughter, to murmured prayers, to whispered fears, and realize that history has gained its voice. Around you, tools sharpen in both form and function. Flint blades are knapped to precise edges. Bone needles pierce hides into fitted clothing. Fishhooks glint beside riverbanks. Dogs pad at the edges of camps, no longer wild wolves but companions, protectors, and hunters in their own right. This partnership feels monumental. You crouch to scratch behind a wolfish ear, and it leans into your hand, the first of many generations to come. But change is stirring. You feel it in the soil, in the seeds clutched by a woman kneeling in a clearing. She presses grains of barley into the earth, covers them with care, and glances at the sky as though waiting for a promise. This is the dawn of agriculture, fragile and uncertain. For thousands of years, people will continue to hunt and gather, but slowly, steadily, they will turn to fields and herds. Historians still argue why this shift began. Was it climate, pushing people to adapt? Was it population pressure, the need to feed more mouths? Or was it simple curiosity, a willingness to test what would grow? You watch as wheat sprouts in a neat row, as goats graze within a rough enclosure of branches. And you realize you are witnessing one of humanity's most profound experiments. Villages rise where once there were only camps. Mud brick walls take shape, hearths burn in permanent places, and families settle near rivers. At Jericho, towers rise against the desert, their stones set by hands both patient and proud. The air is thick with the smell of bread baking, with the lowing of cattle, with the chatter of people who no longer wander but stay. You feel the ground beneath your feet grow heavy with footprints, layered one atop another, marking continuity instead of passing. And with settlement comes ritual. In Anatolia, at Çatalhöyük, houses cluster like honeycomb, roofs serving as streets. Inside, walls are painted with bulls, vultures, and strange abstract designs. Burials lie beneath floors, the dead resting under the living. You trace your hand over a plastered skull, its features carefully reshaped, and you wonder what prayers were whispered here. Was it reverence, memory, or the hope of keeping the ancestors near? Scholars still debate, their certainty as fragile as the painted walls. But the presence of meaning is undeniable. Time folds into rhythm. Crops are sown and harvested, animals bred, surplus stored. Pottery emerges, clay shaped and hardened by fire. In your hands, you cradle a jar etched with patterns of spirals, its surface both utilitarian and beautiful. Art and necessity have entwined, as they always will. But settlement is not without cost. You walk among people bent over in fields, their backs aching, their hands calloused. Disease spreads in crowded villages, carried by close contact with animals and neighbors. Famine threatens when crops fail. The freedom of the hunt feels far away, traded for the certainty of bread. And yet, for all its hardship, agriculture spreads, its momentum unstoppable. Rivers become lifelines. Along the Nile, people learn to harness the flooding, to sow in the rich silt, to reap in rhythm with the waters. Along the Tigris and Euphrates, irrigation channels carve the land, fields unfurling in ordered lines. The Indus Valley hums with trade and plants streets, wells and drainage systems, showing a care for order rare in this age. Along the Yellow River, millet fields wave in the wind, while rice paddies gleam in the south. Everywhere, water shapes life, and people shape water in return. You drift closer to the Euphrates, where clay tablets are etched with careful lines, cuneiform, the world's first writing. The impressions are crude at first, tallying grain or livestock. But soon they carry more: prayers, contracts, stories. You run your fingers along the wedge-shaped marks and feel how thought has been given permanence. No longer will knowledge vanish with the speaker. It will endure in clay, in stone, in ink. Nearby, in Egypt, hieroglyphs bloom in color, symbols carved into temple walls and painted on papyrus. A scribe dips a reed into black ink and carefully shapes signs that are both word and picture. The air smells of ink and sand, of oil lamps burning low. Writing here is not just record, but magic, words believed to hold power themselves. This is the threshold of history, where memory begins to stretch beyond the limits of flesh. The voices of the dead can be read centuries later, their thoughts resurrected by anyone who can decipher the code. It is dizzying, almost supernatural to imagine. But for every record kept, mysteries remain. In Britain, circles of stone rise on green fields, their purpose debated. Was Stonehenge a calendar, a temple, a burial ground? You stand among its massive stones, their surfaces rough against your palm. and look to the horizon where the solstice sun aligns just so. The builders are long gone, their voices silent. Yet their work continues to mark time with unwavering precision. And far away, other monuments rise. Megaliths in Brittany, earth mounds in the Americas, moai on distant islands yet to be carved. Humanity leaves its mark in stone, as if unwilling to let the earth forget. The world grows louder with each passing millennium. Bronze gleams as tin and copper are smelted together, shaping weapons and tools that bite sharper than stone. Wheels turn on carts, pulled by oxen across dusty roads. Sailboats skim across rivers, their sails catching the wind like wings. Trade begins to link distant lands, obsidian from Anatolia meeting shells from the Persian Gulf. Lapis from Afghanistan shining in Mesopotamian jewelry. You step into one of these early markets. The air buzzes with barter, with the scent of spices, with laughter and haggling. A child clutches a clay figurine, a simple toy, while nearby a merchant weighs silver against wool. Human life, once scattered, now feels like a woven fabric, threads crossing and knotting in intricate designs. And always, stories grow. Myths of gods and heroes rise alongside temples and palaces. In Sumer, tales of Gilgamesh echo, inscribed in clay. A king seeking immortality, a man grappling with loss. In Egypt, Ra sails across the sky in his sun bark, while Osiris rules beneath the earth. In Greece, not yet classical but already stirring, whispers of deities mingle with the wind. Myths bloom like wildflowers, rooted in soil but reaching toward eternity. You realize, walking among these first civilizations, that the earth has entered a new rhythm. No longer do glaciers dictate the pace. Instead, it is people, small, fragile, endlessly inventive, who drive the story forward. They shape fields, rivers, cities, even myths. They carve their place into the Earth's long memory, determined not to be forgotten. The Holocene is only beginning, yet already you feel the current carrying you toward futures unimaginable. The stars still gleam overhead, unchanged, but below them, the world has shifted irrevocably. The ice has melted, the giants are gone, the humans remain, and they are only just beginning.